challenges that all good problems have. So what are the core challenges you face from a human resource point of view in responding to growth?
Yeah, indeed, the business has grown really well, and I think it's fair to say that some of the bigger challenges dealing with scale are around the people side, so that I think is spot on. I think the challenge we face now is fairly different from what it was a few years ago, and the core challenge for us right now is to get good people into the system, lateral, mid-level hires, senior level hires, and then make them part of the system very quickly, which is not so easy to do. So you might have a fantastic guy who's working for a top-notch MNC, but working for a company like MakeMyTrip, no longer a startup, I guess, but somewhere in between, young, fast-growing, homegrown company, very entrepreneurial, is quite different working from working for an MNC. So the cultural leap poses some issues, and I think absorbing people in your own culture is takes a lot of effort from the side of both the company as well as the individual. So that is one challenge at the mid and senior levels which we face, and I particularly like to get involved there to help that. At the lower and at the entry level, I think the challenges are more around quickly skilling up our people, giving them the requisite know-how to start performing on their job very quickly.
How long is it taken to integrate new people so that they're up to speed?
Yeah, so I guess answered some of this, touched upon some of this in my first answer. Let's talk about the entry-level people. And again, it depends from job to job. So let's say we're getting a young, enthusiastic agent straight out of tourism school who joins us and wants to sell holidays for us, domestic or international. The training and the induction per se could take anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the individual, what they've done. If they're fresh, probably up to even 8 weeks, which includes some kind of induction, some kind of skills, on-the-job training. And then in a period of about 2 months or so, we'll put them on the floor, watch them very carefully. Supervisor will work very closely. There will be a lot of buddy jacking where they will be hearing what they're saying, how they're answering, what kind of replies are going. And then we've seen some individuals just with a natural flair for either selling or servicing, start performing at a fantastic level in as quick as 3 to 4 months, and some frankly taking as long as a year to hit their potential. So I think the key is for us as a company to figure out, do the skills lie on the sales side or on the service side, to slot them in. It's a very different skill set. To slot them in the right one, give them the right inputs. Of course, for lateral hires, they hit the road running while there's an induction, everything else. But the rest of it, they have all the skills. There, the challenge is different. How to make them part of the system. How to get out of the head that, listen, I've come from outside and the system, it's a well-oiled machine now, MakeMyTrip. It's not something which is, very raw and new. So when you come into a well-oiled machine, and I equate it back to, let's say when I joined GE, and GE was a big company out here way back in '99, or when I joined ABN AMRO, a fairly young bank, but still it was a well-oiled machine. You have to figure out how do you become part of the system and yet make a difference. So it's a big challenge for our senior guys too, and the pressure's on, and I think all entrepreneurial companies will very quickly start looking at, okay, so we got this big gun, how's he performing now? So the expectations are also fairly high. So that's the way we look at time frame for these guys.
What kind of investments does this represent? What are the keys to retaining them long enough? And how you prepared yourself for the task of training and all that?
Yeah, so I think we should focus on the lower end because that's probably where most of this is. So in terms of investment in human resource, I can say I can share with you that it is perhaps the single largest component cost bucket for us. Which has a lot, including marketing, including SG&A, including all other spends. So it's really our single largest, which is fine in a services kind of company like ours. Training cost itself is a good proportion of that. We invest pretty heavily, not just in the upfront training, but then continuous inputs. So we believe that it's important that you give inputs at the right intervals and you keep reinforcing them and then seeing people on the job. So very recently we've launched a huge program. It's going to be a year-long program, and then we'll follow it up hopefully next year, which is a talent management system where we've actually identified 120 managers and we're doing this with Conferry, very deep analysis to see which are the skills which they have for their current jobs, which are the skills they don't, and what are the right fitment. And now we're going to see. So this is really going to be the first step towards a career planning for them out here. Next year, we hope to take that down the pyramid and move it to the supervisory level as well. And then eventually we'll get it at a very, very low level. So we'll be able to really tell what are the skills our folks have at particular levels, what are the competencies they have, and then match those skills and competencies with the openings and the roles in the company.
What are the responses you have found to be most helpful, and what has been the hardest to solve?
So, sorry, responses to?
I mean, the question was that what kind of interventions that you've seen for training and capacity building which have been most effective? And which have been difficult to...
Sure. So I think the most effective we have found are some of the programs that we've done internally, and we do. As you're aware, we have trainers for soft skills in-house, and we've actually had that from the beginning. That's one of the areas we've always believed in. We used to run our own call center, so that's kind of in our DNA. We have trainers for specific product skills, so let's say outbound training, and then we pull in our experts like the product guys to come and give them sessions. So let's say we have a product guy who's a champion in Bali. He'll come and do a half day or a full day session. We'll even invite tourism boards to come in, and to make it very evocative and to make it, use AVs, use everything else, because you want these kids to sell those destinations. If you move to our online side of the business, where it's more about the online skills, there what we found most effective is actually the kind of training that they get while working on the job from some of the senior guys. So we'll make it a conscious point to call in our younger folks in our reviews that we are doing either monthly or bi-monthly, which would be 3-4 hour reviews of a business, deep dive. They'll be involved with the presentation making, and then deep dive with the discussion that's happening there, either quietly or even, they're welcome to speak. We found that to be very helpful for certain levels. And then I think what we did with the Focus Ride program for our early joinees, and we also played that with the managers, very interactive, and we found that had a far more lasting effect on people understanding the core concepts of online travel. Actually, it was a revelation for me, and I sat through that first session when I saw that even some of our senior managers who we had hired from the trade were actually quite clueless about the online concepts. And the way I think you managed to explain that in your modules was, I think, left a very lasting impact, and actually, helped them get their concepts very clear. The ecosystem, who are the different levers on it, while for us it's second nature to say, okay, so we are an OTA, we're intermediary in between the supplier and the customer, etc. It's not that clear for everyone because they've been so focused on MICE business, so focused on outbound business, they come from different backgrounds. So I found that to be very useful, and we hope to use that for all new programs.
And you're right, because you see, people at your level have internalized this because you've grown with this.
Correct.
But you're hiring people from all over who haven't kind of imbibed it to that level of intensity.
Correct. Absolutely, Ram. And I think we have to keep in mind, be very conscious of the fact that A, everyone takes their own time, and B, there are some things you can't catalyze beyond. It just takes some time to understand, and this is an intricate industry. While people say the travel industry is a simple one, I actually think the online travel industry is a very complex one, and there's a lot of stuff that's going on. It's complex from the inside. It's complex if you want to understand the levers, what make things happen out here, and it's so dynamic. Look at the stuff that's happening. You just have to be tuned into something like T-News, and you look at what is going on in the world, and we are not immune to it. Things are changing here too, and I actually expect the next few years to be the radical years here for takeoff of not just 2.0, but the beginning of real 3.0. So it's going to be pretty exciting.
What changed, and what were the specific steps that you took to make your company the great places to work?
So we need an hour for this.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm just joking. So yeah, that's something we're very proud about, and at some level, and quite honestly, we didn't prep for it. We wanted to get it, but we didn't prep for it at all. We said, listen, we've got to get it the way we are. We've got to get it normally. You can't fake it. Right? It's something which you've got to be. How can you fake it if they're going to poll, I think, 30, 40, 50% randomly of your customer base, of your employee base, and they're going to ask you, your internal customer, they're going to ask them what they feel about the company and various questions. You don't fake these things, you can't. So in some sort of way, I think it's fair to say that it was a culmination of a lot of things that we did right up front. A culmination of the ethos that the founders wanted to build in the company and reinforced by leading by example, and actually, even with osmosis, filtering it down the line to new managers, because culture is something which again can't be taught. It's got to be felt, it's got to be absorbed. So I think osmosis is really the best way to pass on culture. Hiring the people for right kind of values. So I fundamentally believe out here, and I think that's a common belief now, you can have a different style, but you can't have different values. Your values have to be fundamentally the same, and we have a core set of values that everyone clings on to. And we are very fair, I think, to our people down the line. I think we are truly an egalitarian company, where we respect the individual at any level. We are a meritocracy. We love to see our internal people shine, old, new, whatever, young guys come up, and we always look inside first rather than going outside and giving them more opportunities. TMS is one of those areas. So I think all of that reflected into us getting this. Also, I think just the openness and the transparency of the culture. We are a place where you don't get penalized if you lose a lot of money for the company, so long as you did it without malintent. You did it with good intentions, you thought this was the right thing to do, you ran an experiment or you built a new program and it crashed. Or you thought that you're doing the smart thing by hosting in a new place the site, and you had crashes and you had big losses. No one gets penalized. I don't even think you get wrapped so long as you get the message. So long as you don't repeat those mistakes. The key thing is, don't repeat those mistakes. Learn from that mistake. Because none of us know this. I always tell the guy, like the other day, it was very nice to hear from one of our smartest product managers. He says, I made a lot of mistakes, and some of them really were very costly. What I loved is that, I never got penalized. I have the confidence of making those mistakes. And I said, absolutely. And I said, the reason you have that, you were never penalized, is because we are honest to ourselves, and we believe even if we were to do it, if I were to be doing that job, I could have made that mistake. So, at times we take big risks, we take big swings in the company. Some will work out, some won't. But if the intent is right and there was rigor in the analysis, then things can go wrong. So that's okay. So I think that kind of culture gives young managers, old managers alike, a lot of confidence to experiment and to be entrepreneurial. And we keep encouraging that behavior, because once you get that behavior, that's when you push the envelope. And if everyone's pushing the envelope and saying, listen, how can I move up conversion? How can I do something else? Why don't I sell enough flights?